you ever heard a wrestling fan say something like, "Oh, this wrestler is a rolling dumpster fire of hot garbage"? Or maybe something along the lines of, "Oh, that wrestler, he's better than sex with chocolate ice cream." Or something to that effect. Well, that's just a matter of opinion, right? I mean, one man's Hulk Hogan is another man's Ultimate Warrior, and one man's Ultimate Warrior is another man's Dean Malenko. All right, maybe that last example, that can't possibly be true for anybody. Anyway, point is, this is just subjective. It's just a matter of opinion, right? Wrong. Believe it or not, there actually is a way to prove logically and empirically whether one wrestler is better than another. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the miracle that is chain wrestling. Turns out you can totally tell how good or bad a wrestler is based off of one thing, and that is analyzing chain wrestling. Well, let's start by talking about what chain wrestling actually is. Chain wrestling is when you have wrestlers that link moves that transition from one into another. So, for example, if you've ever seen a powerbomb get reversed and turned into a Hurricane Rana, that would be one link in a chain. But one link does not a chain make. So, for my money, you need to at least see 3 moves strung together before I start getting the slightest amount of chain wood going, and the more links in the chain, the better. This is exactly how we can figure out how good a wrestler actually is, by judging them on the quality of their chain. That's not a Seth Rollins selfie picture joke. So why is chain so important? Why is it the benchmark of the quality of a wrestler? Well, surprise time, wrestling wasn't always fake. It used to be a legitimate sport once upon a time. Greco-Roman, freestyle, and catch as catch can, and many more. These are all styles of wrestling that existed long before Vince McMahon ever did. Not only that, but they also have something else in common too. All these styles, including mixed martial arts and collegiate style wrestling, it's all about transitioning from one hold into another. It's all about being able to leverage and manipulate a maneuver that your opponent is putting you on and flipping it around to become a hold that you're putting on them. When being a professional wrestler first became a thing, guess what? All these concepts and strategies still applied. And we see it all the time in the UFC, or if you're one of the, 8 people out there that still watch collegiate wrestling, But somewhere along the lines, after wrestling became predetermined, we just lost our way. And pro wrestling's roots are still very much a part of that. Nowadays, there's as many wrestling fans out there who don't know what chain is as there are wrestling fans who watch a Don Morocco match and scratch their heads wondering, why do the commentators keep saying The Rock when Dwayne Johnson's nowhere in sight? So if we remember where wrestling came from, we can look at chain and we can tell the longer the chain goes, the more moves the two guys can string together, the better the match is and the better the wrestler is. However, there is more to a wrestler than simply the length of his chain. Again, that's not a Seth Rollins dig. The thing about chain wrestling is it's provable by fact. A chain count does not lie. Other real sports out there do use statistics all the time to make cases. In professional wrestling, championships, Royal Rumble times, win records. Sure, that stuff might be fun to talk about, but it's not very helpful in discerning the very real talent that these athletes have, because wrestling still is very not real. Those things are part of storylines, but trying to actually figure out the real truth behind the quality of what makes a wrestler good, that kind of stuff, we need different kinds of evidence for. You can't judge the real life talent of a wrestler based off of things that are scripted or predetermined, because that doesn't work. However, we can use some behind the scenes information to really figure out when a wrestler's doing good. And even though we know wrestling's fake, a lot of it still has the ideas that we need to pretend like it's still real. So all the mile markers that mark quality for a wrestler kind of don't really get talked about all that much, which is why not as many people know what chain wrestling actually is, but they totally should. But that doesn't mean that statistical evidence is all inadmissible when it comes to talking about professional wrestling, because it's not. Chain count and chain frequency are most certainly pieces of factual evidence that can be used to lobby a case for whether one wrestler is better than another. For example, guys like Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, and yes, Chris Benoit were phenomenal technical chain wrestlers. And against each other, they could chain like Fleetwood Mac. But not only that, they were all really good at being able to elevate a bad wrestler and give him a better quality match than he normally would have. This is how we separate out the weak from the strong in professional wrestling. Let's take one of the biggest arguments of recent years. Who is the better wrestler, Daniel Bryan or CM Punk? Now, we know the two of them can put on great technical matches together, but that won't help us find an answer. What we need to do is put a control into this experiment. We need to see how they interact with the same wrestler on 2 separate occasions and figure out who does the better job, who has the longer chains, and who has the bigger frequency of chains. Let's take John Cena, and we'll highlight 2 particular matches. Daniel Bryan versus John Cena at SummerSlam 2013, and CM Punk Monday Night Raw, February 2013. And then we'll start analyzing and we'll just do some simple math. Which match has longer chains and which match chains more often? That will determine which match is actually better and therefore which wrestler did better with the exact same person. This will determine the winner under this criteria. Who is the better chain wrestler and therefore who is the actual better wrestler, period. Now you can go and do this on your own, but spoiler alert, it's CM Punk. Now, even though this is fact-based, it doesn't mean you still can't make a case the other way. Wrestlers have many matches, and they have a lot of them against the same wrestler. So if you pick two completely different matches, your outcome might be totally different. We can examine and re-examine wrestling all across the board to figure out how good a wrestler is by simple pattern recognition. How complex, how well-paced, and how well executed. These are all factors that go into judging the quality of a chain. So for example, if you eventually reverse a chin lock, but it takes you 5 minutes to do so, I think it's safe to say the chain has been broken. So if you take a side headlock and reverse it into another side headlock, that's nowhere near as interesting as if you took the side headlock and transitioned it into, I don't know, a spinning toe hold or something. That would be a much more interesting chain. So when you realize that most of Baron Corbin's matches, he doesn't do a whole lot more than kicking and punching instead of doing, actual wrestling. And on top of that, if it goes over 5 minutes, it's because they took a lot of extreme liberties with the whole rest maneuver situation. However, if you take Cesaro, especially Antonio Cesaro from a couple of years ago, you'll notice that there is phenomenal chain wrestling in almost all of his matches, no matter who he's in the ring with. And you'll also notice that it seems like he doesn't have any sweat glands either. So now it's very clear that Cesaro is way better than his fellow Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner Baron Corbin. Which I feel I shouldn't even have to say. I mean, it's obvious, right? I mean, you all knew that, right? Now, I will concede that chain is not the only mark of quality for a wrestler. Storytelling, ring psychology, charisma, these are all factors that go into how good or bad a wrestler is. Enough skills in these areas could override a lack of chain wrestling ability. I totally understand that. I'm just saying that there is fact-based evidence to go to whenever we're making an argument about whether a wrestler is good or not. We can all be smarter wrestling fans, but feel free to like who you like. Maybe you like Hulk Hogan simply because you grew up with him. Maybe your friend really likes The Rock just because he loved the way he cut promos. And I'm pretty sure Zara Schreiber didn't like Seth Rollins for his hair. I'm pretty sure she liked him because of his chain. Now I am making a selfie joke. But what do you guys think? What are some of the best examples of chain wrestling you've ever seen? And who are some of the best examples of chain wrestlers you've ever seen? I want to know in the comments. And please, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. This has been Dave Knows. Alright, that's my video on chain wrestling. If you liked it, check out some of the other ones I got. You can look over here and you can click on either this one, which is about racism in the WWE, or maybe you want to check out this one here, which is all about the Montreal Screwjob, which is not an attack on anybody personally. It's just my opinion on the Montreal Screwjob. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks again. Dave Knows.